No, it's like we're crooked. It's maybe a little better. Let's try that. YouTube says we're live, so another live feed. I had this request several weeks back. In all honesty, there was one gentleman that gave a very specific, well thought through, well written email regarding detention. And I've owed that gentleman this video for probably a month or more. I went back to look for the email and I couldn't find it. So we're gonna sort of talk around this topic, and I hope to hit a couple of the topics, a couple of his points in there. And if he does come into this video or he'll see it, please send me your email again and I'll try to address it. You guys know what this is? While we're waiting for a few people to come in. Anybody know what this is? It's chocolate milk. You know why I'm drinking chocolate milk? While we're letting a few people come in, I wanted to share this. Back in the, no, I didn't go to the hospital. I should address that. This just happened to be the first thing that I sort of grabbed off the shelf. Briggs and I were going for a swim. And so I probably, look here, a lot of us probably should be in the hospital just for mental health reasons if we're in the transportation industry. But no, I didn't go to the hospital. No. Chocolate milk. Milk. 80s and 90s, milk was just on a steady decline, right? I mean, nobody was buying a lot of milk, right? And that whole industry was suffering. And so then what happened? All of a sudden, milk started to do that. I mean, it was real steady decline, and then really quickly, it sort of did that. You know what happened? The milk industry got together. And you know what they said? Milk does a body good, right? Milk does not really do a body good. I just find it better in my protein shakes and my cereal than water, right? That's the only reason I buy it. So they sort of said, hey, milk, it does a body good. And then people started to sort of like, right, sales of milk did that. And then the milk industry decided, they came up with this ad, 2 words. This is how powerful marketing in 2 words can be relative to business. So milk was doing that, and then they said, hey, it does a body good, and it sort of did that. And then they said, got milk? Poof. Everybody was like, I don't have milk. Shit, no, I don't have milk. I need milk. Why do I need milk? It does a body good, right? The perception of what we didn't have drove us to change an entire industry to go and consume more milk, something that's not particularly good for us. So what does that matter relative to detention? Detention is sort of one of those things that, I'm gonna go through a lot of data. I got some data here. All right, so those that like data, I got some data. I wanna go through some data. Detention is sort of like milk. If you don't have it, right, you're gonna be in bad shape, right? You need detention coverage in your contracts, right? In this case, milk isn't really good for you, but detention rates, man, you need detention rates in your contracts. So let me just dive into, we're a couple minutes in now, let me just dive into numbers. This 63% of carriers, 257 carriers were surveyed, 50 brokers were surveyed in this study. All right, so 257 carriers, 50 brokers, 63% surveyed by DAT carriers said that their drivers had been detained at a shipper or consignee for more than 3 hours. 54% said they were detained more than 4 hours. 9% said 5+ hours. Okay. 84% stated detention was ranked, so this is carriers. 84% of the 257 carriers said detention was ranked as one of the top 5 leading business problems that trucking companies / owner operators face. Right? 84 of them %, this is one of their top 5 problems. Want to know what the brokers said? 50 brokers were surveyed. Brokers said, detention, yeah, it's kind of a problem, I think. 20%, only 20% saw it as a major challenge for their business. That, folks, is as big of a disconnect as the entire milk industry was back in the 80s and 90s, right? I mean, going downhill really, really fast, and then somebody says, hey, got milk? It's good for you. Sales go crazy. Carriers are saying this is one of the top 5 major problems that we face in our business, and brokers only 20% of brokers feel the same way. Major disconnect there. And that surprises me, really, because one thing that I know about carriers and drivers is that we are not slow to complain. I don't think that we're slow to complain. I really don't. A couple more things in this DAT study. Brokers that the DAT had surveyed said that they felt drivers were being detained less than 30% of the time. Okay, maybe that's true. I mean, it's kind of hard to argue that. You don't know how big their book of business is. The majority of brokers said carriers complained about the detention practices of some or a few shippers. I have a tough time believing that. That one I have a tough time. Gets more interesting. Only 3% of trucking companies and owner-operators surveyed said that they were paid on their detention claims. Only 3% were paid on their detention claims. Not surprising, they also went on to say that those detention rates and those claims did not even begin to cover the opportunity cost, right? Opportunity cost. A few more pieces out of this article. Let's see. One owner-operator surveyed by DAT reported to losing 2 loads while they were being detained. Right. So they were literally clearly they were held hostage for some noticeable amount of time, a few days. This owner-operator said that they lost 2 loads, combined value $1,900 because his truck was detained too long at a receiver's dock. More interesting. So I got an email this morning, right? Ricky. So I was on the call this morning with a really cool call. I think I just saw Bob in here. Retired New York Fire Department, or from the New York Fire Department, and starting some trucking stuff. And so we had kind of a long call, and that was really cool. And then while we were on that call, I got another email from Ricky. We won't use Ricky's name. We'll call him Bobby. Ricky Bobby. Sorry, Ricky. Ricky said, "Hey, man, can you help me? I'm being detained. I'm in an overage situation. 4 pallets of paper towels." And I forgot how long he said he had been detained. And so I sort of responded back to him. I'll kind of get to that in just a few minutes. This article, so this guy says, hey, I lost $1,900 on 2 loads because of this one detention incident. The survey also found that the typical detention claim only pays $30 to $50 per hour. Okay? This is where I wish I had... I do have brokers that watch this. I know I get comments or emails from them from time to time, but I think they just lurk a hell of a lot more than they do anything else. This is where I wish there were more vocal brokers on my channel. FMCSA says it's concerned about the excessive detention time, no doubt. And they said the increase in that detention time is touching on driver fatigue, which encourages drivers to violate hours of service, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Here's the thing. DOT released a study. In fact, I did a video on this. It's about a 14-minute video. It's an edited video. It's called Exposing FMCSA. I'll try to post that at the end of this, but go check that video out. Pretty fascinating article. I'm going to touch on it briefly in this one as well. So FMCSA did a couple of studies. And they found that if a driver is detained by 15 minutes of unplanned detention, 15 minutes, that increased the percentage of time that a driver gets into an accident. I think it was by 6 or 7%. Okay, 15-minute unplanned detention increased by 6 or 7%. And the argument that the study said was because that detention now makes that driver drive faster, is more concerned about missing out on revenue and opportunities. And all those two things combined gets into a situation where they're more unsafe, and then they get into a situation where they're getting in wrecks, okay? Does that surprise anyone? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. If it increases accidents by 6 or 7%, I guess my argument sort of is, I have a question, FMCSA, pick me. The question is, if 15 minutes of detention causes drivers to be 7% more likely to be involved in an accident, what happens when you start looking at the real world scenario where guys are now, everyone is running e-logs, and detention is a hell of a lot more widespread than, at least for our business, we run a lot of the spot market. Detention is widespread, right? This is not a trivial issue whatsoever. I think, won't e-logs cause that same thing? Because if they're, say, 30 minutes from home or something like that, and they're running out of hours, what do you think is going to happen? Are they going to drive faster? What if that was because they were detained previously? I mean, it just kind of gets really stupid. Now, what was really interesting out of the FMCSA's article is the DOT came out and said, and sort of exposed the FMCSA and said, man, because the FMCSA was saying, we don't really know if we believe that this data is correct. There's some stuff that's maybe not exactly true. DOT came in and was just like upside the head to FMCSA. DOT said, oh, absolutely, these numbers are valid numbers. They're legitimate, and they're causing problems, okay? FMCSA really still hasn't done much about that. Here's what's interesting about this, right? From a broker or a shipper or a receiver standpoint. Let's assume that the average driver is going to run 48 weeks out of the year. That's what, 3,300 plus hours, roughly, 3,300 and something hours a year that they have. Every time that driver or that company or that carrier is detained 2, 3, 4 hours, you eat into that 3,300-ish hours that they have to make money for the year. Sadly, we don't track detention as a percentage of a driver's 70 or something like that. That's probably something that we should track. That would be easy for us to do, and two, would be really valuable as well. More specifically, what would be really fun, now that I think about this, I'm gonna make a note, hang on. I'm gonna ask Patricia to track this, bear with me. If we track detention by broker, like which broker has the most detention, just wanna make a note there so I don't forget. Because it's a real issue. Now, here's what all matters. Let's get into the heart of it. So in Ricky Bobby's situation, right? He's already lost a load, okay? Now the FMCSA, by the way, FMCSA did their study and they said, hey, the average of the trucking industry is losing like $2.1 billion, I think it was, or 1.2. $1.2 billion a year due to detention. That's a lot of zeros, and that's quite a few commas. That's a lot of money, right? FMCSA said though the average truck is only experiencing $1,280 to $1,500 worth of loss. $1,500. Here's my opinion. My opinion is every one time that we experience a detention and we lose a load, guaranteed that's at least $1,500. And I can assure you that every one of our drivers face detention a hell of a lot more than one time a year, right? A lot more. So where they're getting some of these numbers, I don't know. Maybe they are tracking data from a lot of the mega carriers that are doing a lot of drop-in hooks. That would seem to be very counterproductive for a detention survey. But I wouldn't put it past the FMCSA because that'd be a great way to dilute the numbers. Guys, I've said this a lot. I said it a lot on my first channel. Most of those videos are gone. Here's what I can tell you. You absolutely must, you should, under all circumstances, put language into your rate confirmation that speaks to detention. Now, Ricky Bobby was asking, man, I don't really know, like, what should I charge for this detention? They got 4 pallets, right? That sort of gets back to your cost per mile and your cost per day and knowing your business. So for those guys that don't know what their cost per mile is or their cost per day, they don't know what they're missing out. You can sort of use some big round averages of probably somewhere in that $1,000 a day, $1,200 a day of revenue. I'm not sure what his profit would be that he's losing. But I can tell you this, this study, as well as many other studies that I've just pulled up here in the past 45 minutes, showed that the average detention paid is around $50 an hour, right? 30 to 50 bucks an hour. What's real interesting, let me go to this other study. I'll share this with you guys. This may fall into the category, because that's probably not surprising to anyone. Let me pull up this data, because if I can find it really quickly. The average shipper expects to pay $60 an hour for detention. Now this particular study goes back to 2014. So we're sort of in a different world and time than we were in 2014. So I think you can probably assume the average rate per hour for detention is probably north of $60 an hour, probably somewhere closer to 75 to 100. But here's the thing that I want everybody to understand. They do pay that in 15-minute increments. That's how they tend to pay it. But here's the kicker. The average shipper tends to max out detention at $600 a day, right? $600. What's the magic number that most everyone hears on detention or layover? What is that? What I hear, what I see, what we see, $250. That's what we see, right? If you don't have that language written into your rate con, you are putting yourself at either a shipper who flat out doesn't care about how much time that they hold you up, right? I mean, the vast majority of them don't. So, and the broker is oftentimes not on the carrier side, right? You're not paying their bills. It is far more frequent that they're going to side with their customer who is paying the bills, right? So is that where relationships can help? Sure, it is, absolutely, for you with that broker or you with that direct customer. In Ricky Bobby's case, I told Ricky Bobby, I said, look, you need to be contacting the broker, you need to be contacting the shipper, you need to be contacting the receiver. Here's part of the problem I think a lot of guys don't consider. We had this happen to us, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, something like that. We were hauling a load of cherries out of Washington down to Clarksville, Arkansas. There was some bruising on some of the cherries, and they asked us to take it down to another location. That other location was about 100 miles away. What I told Ricky Bobby here was, hey man, you need to get on the phone with broker, shipper, receiver. You need to start being very polite, but incredibly assertive on getting this off your trailer, because you're already losing money. All right, how much? He's asking me. He's asking me how much he's losing. I'm not sure. But again, you're probably losing, $1,000 to $1,200 a day in revenue. What your profit is, don't know. You need to know that. There's certainly a loss. Now, a couple things can happen. They can continue to hold you hostage, right? Whereas you may have to make some really tough decisions. You wouldn't be in this situation, and none of us would be if we had language in our rate cons, right? Specifying layover, specifying detention, and all those types of things, we'd be in a lot better situation. But here's what happens oftentimes is you sort of get there, there's an overage, there's damage, there's something not carrier related. And what do we hear oftentimes? Oh, will you take this down to this location or this other warehouse, or you take it back to the shipper? We hear that, I don't know, 15, 20% of the time. When that happens, this is what I was telling Ricky Bobby, is if they make that suggestion or that demand or that offer, you need to do a couple things. One, you need to make sure that you're in that rate con, you're capturing the detention or the downtime that you've missed for being held hostage during this overage. One. Two, you need to make sure that you're going to get a fair rate going to wherever it is they are now asking you to go. Three, you need to do your homework, because wherever they're asking you to go, you need to determine, because it's August, you need to make sure that there's going to be good rates coming out of there. Because if you're trying to be the nice guy and just get paid a little bit extra to get this off so you can take another load, wherever you're going to final out might be a really crappy area, and now you've just made matters worse. Lastly, and I've never had this happen, but knock on wood, right? It is transportation. Lastly, make sure that in that run where you're taking it back or you're taking it to somewhere else, make sure that you've got some information in your contract relative to detention, right? How bad would it be to do that, to be the nice guy or whatever, get there on a Sunday morning and they're not open? So you're going to sit there all day Sunday. Are you going to get paid for that? Probably not. They feel like they're already paying you detention from the first one and mileage down here and all this other stuff. So it's really up to us to be better business people and make sure we have that language in our contracts. And guys, it can be as simple as taking a pen, redlining it and writing it in, sending it back to the shipper or the broker or the shipper to make sure that it gets signed. It's that simple. I'm going to tell you guys this. At some point, rates and the volume of freight is going to change, and it's going to change drastically. When that happens, I don't know. I can assure you of this. Whenever you put terms and conditions in these contracts, go ahead and just put it in there for 6 months or a year. Just go ahead and put it in. Because when the rates change and you are no longer the commodity that is in demand, the chances of you getting terms and conditions relative to detention and TANO and layover and stuff like that put into the contract, good freaking luck. Good freaking luck. If you ask for those types of information, no, we're good. We'll go find somebody else. And they will. And they will. So that's kind of the situation that you guys are up against. Now is the time for you guys to ensure that you're getting that language into a lot of your brokers. Right? For you owner operators, man, when you guys are sitting at home or you're on a 10-hour break, just draft a document and start sending it out to your brokers and say, hey, I'm just updating my terms and conditions. How many times do you guys get those emails from carriers? Excuse me, from brokers. Hey, we're updating our terms and conditions. Probably ought to read that. Probably ought to read that really closely, right? You guys also need to understand that there are a lot of customers. I mean, we ask this often. We run reefer, and so we know to ask this question often. For example, any kind of frozen chicken type loads, right? One of the very first questions I ask when I'm booking a load is, what's the detention rates, right? What are our detention rates? We don't have any with you guys on this load. In fact, hey, it doesn't really matter because this shipper, they don't pay detention, right? If they say that, it's on you. I don't care if that shipper doesn't pay, right? Then you can pay that, right? Because my contract is with you, the broker, right? Now, if the broker doesn't want to pay attention, then you probably shouldn't take that load. Or you need to go into that knowing that the average frozen chicken load is going to take 6 to 8 hours to load, right? So there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, guys, and you need to understand it. But you also need to understand that back in 2014, shippers were expecting to pay $600 for as a maximum rate of detention. Are you positioning yourself to take advantage of that, to capture that? Or are you just hoping? Everybody say it with me. Hope is a shitty business plan. Are you just hoping that things are going to work out in your favor? Are you hoping that when you get into a detention situation that the broker is going to take care of you? Are you hoping that the broker is going to lean on the person that pays their salary to pay you money? There's a whole lot of hoping going on there, right? There really is. Tough situation. You just can't be afraid to stand up for your business, for your rights, to ensure that you are taking care of business. And detention and rates and things of that nature are absolutely part of it. How do you factor detention? I think, or how do you? Let's talk about Ricky Bobby and his situation. One of the things I suggested to him was, look, you're in an overage situation, right? You got 4 pallets of stuff. In this case, it's paper towels. You got 4 pallets of stuff sitting on your trailer. You're in a bit of a spot, right? 1, you don't have language in your contract. 2, you don't even know what you should be asking for, right? That's another problem. But 2, now that you're in this situation, how do you get out of it, right? And how do you get out of it quickly? Start calling the broker, start calling the shipper, start calling the receiver. Start calling somebody to figure out how the hell you're going to get this off, where you're going to go, right? Before you start pounding on those phones, you better have a plan, and that plan needs to look like what you're going to ask for to do this, because this is where there's a quid pro quo, all right? It is. Now, I've heard some extremes where guys just say, it's paper towels, I could care less. I'll open the doors, throw it in reverse, slam on the brakes, there's 4 pallets in their yard, I'm out. Probably not going to get you what you want, right? Probably not going to get you what you want. What you really should be doing is being really professional and really assertive with all 3 of those individuals, broker, shipper, receiver, right? Explain to them what your losses are and what you're facing, right? And before you decide to pull out of that dock or move that truck, you need to have a game plan in place. And I've had so many brokers and so many shippers and receivers squeal that we're so horrible that we're not going to move our truck out of that dock. No, it's not my product, right? I play the card often, not often. I play the card sometimes. I'm not going to take this product. I'm not going to leave this facility, right? 1, I don't have a rate con on it. 2, I don't have paperwork on it. 3, that's theft. I'm not a big fan of theft, so I'll just sit right here until you guys get this squared away. And they squeal so loud, so just the most painful thing ever. I mean, please, right? It's your product, not my problem, right? We did our job. Our job is there to transport. We're not your cold storage, right? We're not the company that's supposed to be running your stuff to food banks, right? It's not us. If you want us to do that, that's fine. We can do that. This comes at a cost. So this individual really needs to be really assertive, but still really professional. He needs to have a plan on what he's looking for, what he's asking for, and he needs to be really assertive with asking for that, sticking to his guns. And it needs to be fair and reasonable, right? If you start asking for, right, $2,000 a day, you're probably not gonna put yourself in a situation where you're negotiating in good faith. You're probably not gonna help yourself out. So that's kind of that. Let me jump in and ask a few questions while I drink some of my chocolate milk. The Hulu says office looks kind of bare. Trigger Assassin, how are you? NV, gonna have to say BS on that one. What are you saying BS on? Why is he wearing scrubs? I'm not a real doctor. That's funny. I'll ask Kristen if she wants to play doctor. Will says they'll just feel like the psychology speaking and don't acknowledge the problem. There's a lot to that, right? I mean, they don't want to hear you. And this is certainly a situation, guys, where the squeaky wheel does get the grease, right? For sure. You have to be assertive on this. DOT only cares about generating revenue. Possibly. Vic says, what the heck? I've been at the dock, waiting to get loaded since 10 p.m. last night. I'm still waiting to get loaded at this place. Man, Vic, you are a lot more patient than I am. I would have already been on the load. I mean, the tough part is it's Sunday, but I'd have already been on the load boards looking for something else. Hey guys, really, and Vic's making another comment about how horrible that place is. Guys, Doc 411, I talked about it yesterday. I'm not paid to say that. Download the app, it's free. It is an app whereby carriers and all this sort of stuff allows us to rate every shipper, every receiver, and how good they are or aren't. That information should be something that you should be using to make a financial decision when you're pricing a load that you're gonna take. It should be, right? I mean, and here's the game, right? If the broker and the TQLs of the world don't want to tell you who the shipper is, which oftentimes they don't, the second that you get the rate con and you see that it says ABC company, you need to compare that to Doc 411. And if their ratings come back horrible, I would be right back on the phone with the broker and saying, hey, here's what Doc 411 says. No. So I'm going to increase my detention rates or things of that nature, or I'm going to increase my rate to take this load. One of those two things, right? Just telling you. True story. True that. Marty, on the DAT load board, should have an average loading or unloading time. But man, it's funny that you mentioned that, Marty. There's a couple of things that I'm surprised doesn't exist on, especially with a company like that. There are a couple of other pieces of information that could make that could completely separate them head and shoulders above the rest. And I think that's one of those items. Someone needs to pull shipper detention paid versus broker detention paid. It'll be shocking how much is being stolen by the brokers. I can't tell. I have to tell you, I can't help but think that all the time. But understand this, guys. Brokers don't want us in a detention situation any more than we do, because that requires a lot more work on their part, right? That work on their part, they probably are taking some piece of that money because they're having to put in extra work. So it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't. Detention inevitably leads to layover as well. Layover never pays for actual lost revenue. No, again, right? I mean, average layover is $250. Right now, hopefully you've been getting detention prior to that layover, but I think, we tend to sit there and say, look, we're going to charge a detention rate up until about 8 or 10 hours, and at that point we'll charge a layover. We're toast at that point anyways. But far bigger, LL, than detention leading to layover, right? It's eating up a whole lot of your 70. It's eating up a whole lot of those 3,300 and however many hours a year that we have to run, that we can't capture. And once we've lost that time, we can't, guys aren't running on paper logs anymore, right? They can't go back in time. Yep, 250 is about the max. That's right. TANO, T-O-N-U, TANO, truck order not used, right? So truck order not used, typically what TANO is a dollar amount that if you had booked a load with a shipper or a broker, and they call you typically within 24 hours is about the average window, and they cancel that load on you, they will typically pay you TANO, truck ordered but not used, and typically that number is about $250. Rhino, how are you? Good morning, Sugar Shine. Tommy Reed says, I have the language in the contract, and they'll pay half or sometimes nothing. What do you do then, Scott? You don't have a lot of options at that point, right? You don't have a lot of options. Now you can go after, if it's in the contract, you can, you might be better off suited to find some type of a prepaid legal service, have them go sick those guys. I mean, I guess it really determines how frequently that's happening to you. Probably more frequently in the reefer world house. So is that worth some type of prepaid legal service? Like I have attorneys on retainer. I just pick up the phone and they take care of problems. It's kind of the same thing for you guys. Just the prepaid legal services come at a much cheaper rate. Might be a good thing for your business. Benjamin Duke, our time is how long it takes to put the product on the trailer, securement. If you leave, you'll be back charged for finding another truck, right? No doubt. No doubt. They can try that. There's a lot of other stuff in this article. It was talking about, the average unload time is 2 hours, right? I heard this a lot, and I think it's a pretty valid argument. It was talking about the percentage of shippers. I don't remember what that was, and I had to find it. They typically, allow 2 hours of free time, right? Free meaning your time, my time, not their time, to load the truck. After that, detention kicks in. But there was a noticeable percentage. There was a noticeable percentage of shippers and receivers that wouldn't start the clock until like 3, 4, or 5 hours later, right? And again, it sort of depends on what that freight is, what that commodity, so on and so forth. Hopes and dreams equals bankruptcy, no doubt, right? Zach, how are you, man? So last night I had a hope and dream. I'll tell you guys about it. So where I live, really close. We're like in the middle of the desert, right? Not like Phoenix desert, but I live on the outskirts. So, literally just minutes away, middle of the desert. You guys have probably seen some of the videos of me shooting my bow. That is a 6-minute drive from my house, right? Nothing around. I love it. However, Not too far away, there is kind of some horse properties, if you will. I don't know, maybe, I don't know, whatever, 20 houses or so. They got 10, 15 acres. One of them was having a hell of a party last night. And they started singing around 7 o'clock. And it wasn't horrible. It was kind of karaoke. It wasn't horrible. By 2:30, there were a whole lot of drunk people singing karaoke, and it was really horrible. It was really horrible. I was hoping and dreaming that would stop really quickly. Reynolds says, my time starts when I arrive to the back of the line and ends when I'm secured and leaving. Right, there's a lot of value to that, right? Your e-logs, guys, your e-logs can be really valuable in some of those situations. You know, as far as when you got somewhere, showing that information. So, right, Harding was whining and crying because he didn't want to be tracked the other day, but there's value sometimes in being tracked, right? If we're getting detention that we can then pass along to the driver because we can track where they were and when they were, that's good. Donnie Luke, go do it. Doc 411. Curtis Burnett, money, absolutely. Joshua Clark says, download Doc 411. I don't see much info at all. Am I not holding it in my mouth right? I don't know. You know what? Here's what we should do. Why don't I've got the CEO's, why don't I try to do a video with the CEO of Doc 411? Maybe we'll do like a Google Hangouts or something like that where we're on this together. I'll see if I can make that happen. He's going to be at GATS this week. Maybe I should reach out to him, see if we can't do a live feed sometime this week. And that might be kind of cool and kind of beneficial. XPO wouldn't even communicate with you until I agreed to drop my trailer at the receiver. That's interesting. Limo Joe, the driver, how's it going, man? Which contract, broker carrier or Raycon? So either, right, Benjamin? I mean, you at a minimum, you want to make sure that it's in your rate confirmation, right? At a minimum, you want to make sure that it is in your confirmation, rate confirmation from the broker, right? Because they're the ones that are paying you, not the shipper, unless you have a direct shipper. What's really funny, guys, is just so you guys know, if you've never had a direct shipper, those types of accessorials are always in every direct customer we've ever had, right? All that was in there. So it's only when you get into the spot market, a lot of the brokers that they try to prevent that, right? And that's just a way that the broker is going to screw the carrier and try to say, look, if you go with me, I'll try to handle that and reduce your annual costs. All right, Donnie, good luck tinkering with that. No, I know who, if it was it's not the proper desert. I've got houses around me, live in a little small neighborhood. I don't know, there's probably 50 houses in this neighborhood or whatever it is. But 5 minutes away, I talked to the guy that owns that ranch. He's got several hundred acres out there. It's awesome, love it. Thankful for him. I am in hospital scrubs, Tommy Reed. And I just happened to grab it. Briggs and I were in the pool literally 10 minutes before I flipped on the camera, and so I dried off and just grabbed this. It was hanging in the closet. Don't lumpers charge an average of $4 a skid? No, they would charge a hell of a lot more than $4 a pallet. A hell of a lot more than $4 a pallet. Yeah, right? Maybe that's what I should do as my side gig. I should go start being lumper. That's it. Hey, 39 minutes. Yesterday's video was 45. Let's make this one shorter. So look, moral of the story is you've got to protect yourself because nobody else is going to take care of your business. In fact, when it comes to detention, TANO, layover, things of that nature, if you want to see those guys, meaning the brokers and the shippers, scream and whine, they're screaming and whining because they're having to pay for their time. Right? They're having to pay for their time because they're not ready. So they want you to sit and wait for nothing. Right? So they're going to really fight that. The solution is to make sure that you redline your rate confirmation, send it back to that broker and make sure that it's signed. Right? Just like whenever you sign a rate confirmation and send it back, you're signing those terms and conditions, T's and C's. You're now legally bound. It's a contract. So edit it. I don't care if it's on the computer or by hand. Right? Make sure you got it in there. Protect yourself. Green Panther, I couldn't agree with you more. Lumpers are a ripoff, no doubt. Benjamin Duke says, just shows how much carrier or one trucks know about what needs to be stated and agreed to. We are trained to just go with the flow and someone else will take care of you. I'm telling you, Benjamin, just like I'm sure your parents told you when you were young, you got to look out for number one. Nobody else is going to be doing that. Nobody else, right? Empty fuel, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. Let's see, Tommy Red says, side business, Scott will do ride-alongs. No. Who is it? It's not Tommy. I can't think of the guy that's always on me to go make some videos, shoot my bow. I'm gonna go shoot my bow right now. 40 minutes, 41 minutes. Hey, that's it. If you don't address TANO and all that stuff, that's on you. Expect to lose the money. Protect yourself because nobody else will. My opinion, this side of the steering wheel. You guys be safe.